Hello, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome back to the podcast. And today I'm going to go my review of Monday Night Raw. Starting off the night, we have John Cena. John Cena comes out to the ring, grabs a microphone. John says that he's turned the spotlight on the fans. John then mocks a fan. John says that the fans know nothing about him after 25 years. John mentions the WWE spinner title that he had created, pretty much making a mockery of the original WWE title. John said that he's going to ruin wrestling. John then mocks Ric Flair, saying that he's going to become 17-time world champion. John says that he will retire with the WWE title. John says that he will be the last real champion in WWE. After that, he's interrupted by Cody Rhodes. Rhodes comes out to the ring, grabs a microphone. He mocks John Cena. Rhodes tells John to take the title. John and Cody both have a little stare down in the middle of the ring, but John ends up walking away. Some interesting stuff there from John Cena. Moving on from that, we go into our first official match of the night. It's a tag team matchup with Jey Uso having a mystery partner to go up against A-Town Down. And that mystery partner is none other than his brother Jimmy. Jimmy joins Jey Uso to take on the A-Town Down, the team of Austin Theory and Grayson Waller. I thought it was a good match, man. Back and forth matchup between the Usos and A-Town Down Under, with the Usos keeping the pace. Jey hits a spear in the middle of the ring. Usos end up hitting the finish, pins for the 3. And your winners of the match are the Usos. After the match, Gunther attacks Jimmy. Jey then attacks Gunther. Jey then goes for a spear, but ends up slipping up, he ends up getting caught by Gunther, and Gunther attacks Jey Uso once again, which he has been doing for the past few weeks. Moving on from that, WWE plays a vignette of El Grande Americano. In that vignette, it showed other luchadors, other legend luchadors, such as Blue Demon. I believe they even showed Blue Demon Jr. They showed the Guerrero family. Mil Mascaras, I believe, if I'm not mistaken, El Santo was also shown in that vignette as well. Pretty much hyping up El Grande Americano. I thought the vignette was absolutely awesome. Everybody by now knows that the person behind the mask is Chad Gable. And it looks like there might be some kind of match that happens with El Grande Americano. Possibly at WrestleMania. This could also lead up to the debut of Rey Fenix, debuting possibly at this year's WrestleMania. So some interesting stuff there. For El Grande Americano. Moving on from that, we go into our next match of the night. It's for the Women's Intercontinental title. It is Raquel Rodriguez taking on Lyra Valkyria. I thought it was a decent match. Back and forth matchup between Rodriguez and Valkyria, with Valkyria keeping the pace of the match. Valkyria ends up hitting a roll-up on Rodriguez, pins for the 3, and your winner of the match is Lyra Valkyria. After the match, Liv Morgan attacks Lyra Valkyria in the middle of the ring. Bayley comes out to save Lyra Valkyria by attacking Liv Morgan. Moving on from that, we have an Io Sky, Bianca Belair, and Rio segment. Rhea goes out to the ring, says she wants a rematch. She gets face-to-face with Adam Pearce. Belair says that Rhea is going to have to wait for that rematch, possibly after WrestleMania. After that, Pearce announces that it will be Rhea Ripley versus Io Sky next week. And the winner of that match will face off against Bianca Belair at this year's WrestleMania. After that, an all-out brawl happens between Bianca, Rhea, and Io Sky. Moving on from that, we go into our next match of the night. Is Dragon Lee taking on Grande Americano. I thought it was a good match. Back and forth matchup between Lee and Americano, with Americano trying to keep the pace of the match. Americano hits a Hurricane Rana on Lee, followed by a suplex off the apron that looked absolutely brutal. Americano and Lee both exchange in the middle of the ring, with Lee hitting a power bomb for a near fall. Americano then rips Lee's mask off, which pretty much ultimately helps him apply the ankle lock on Dragon Lee. Lee taps out, and your winner of the match is Grande Americano. Hats off to Americano for getting the win in this matchup. Moving on from that, we have a CM Punk segment. CM Punk comes out to the ring, grabs a microphone. He talks about WrestleMania. He also mentions the Royal Rumble as well as Elimination Chamber. He mocks Rollins and Reigns. Punk says on SmackDown that there will be a contract signing for a triple threat matchup at this year's WrestleMania. Punk also tells Rollins and Romans that he is the one that brought them to WWE, which pretty much means he brought them in as the Shield. Moving on from that, we go into our next match of the night's main event of Monday Night Raw. It is Penta versus Braun Breaker for Breaker's Intercontinental Championship. I thought it was a good match. Back and forth matchup between Penta and Breaker, with Breaker keeping the pace of the match. The Judgment Day are here. Penta then hits a Mexican Destroyer on Braun Breaker for a near fall. Breaker gets up, hits a Frankensteiner off the top rope for a near fall. Braun then attacks Carlito. Referee was distracted for a second, but then Dominic attacks Braun. Referee sounds for the bell, and the match ends in a disqualification. After that, Finn Balor comes out of nowhere, attacks Braun Breaker with a chair. Penta then hits Dom with a chair shot, but Finn attacks Penta with a coup de grace off the top rope, landing on Penta. A couple things I want to talk about, man, when it pertains to Monday Night Raw. I ain't gonna lie to y'all, man. I feel like it's getting to a point with certain moments and matches on Raw. I feel as if we're already getting to the point where it's already WrestleMania fatigue with WrestleMania not being here yet. For multiple reasons, man. And I mentioned this last week about, some specific superstars and specific matches. Number one being Jey Uso. I have praised Jey even since he won the Intercontinental Championship. I've said multiple times that Jey is one of those guys that's put the work in. He has busted his ass to get to the point where he's at right now in his career. Being on the main event scene, being the winner of the Royal Rumble. But this matchup with him and Gunther, man, it's losing steam. It really is. And I mentioned last week that, there's things that they can do to elevate this storyline by Gunther attacking Jimmy Uso backstage or attacking possibly Rikishi something, kind of leaving them in a bloody mess, kind of sending a message to Jey, which will ultimately flip a switch in Jey. And Jey, now will be a whole different Jey Uso now that Gunther made this personal. I don't know if that's going to happen. It still could happen due to the fact that we will see Gunther versus Jimmy Uso next week in a matchup on Monday Night Raw, but I think the two biggest things with this, number one, this storyline here between Gunther and Jey has run flat. Number one. Number two, the storyline has gone way too long. We're talking now, we're 5 weeks in, and we're getting the same shit consistently from Gunther with him attacking Jey Uso from behind every time Jey Uso has a match, with Gunther choking Jey out in the middle of the ring. And then, last week we see a botch pretty much from Jey Uso when he did a tope over the rope. Pretty much, thank God he caught himself. Which was a botch ending in that tope. And then this week we see Jey Uso slip up, which allowed Gunther to pretty much attack Jey, because it looked like Jey was going to go for a spear on Gunther, but ended up slipping up in the middle of the ring, and Gunther was able to capitalize on that by attacking Jey Uso. A lot of people are saying, oh, well, give it time. Obviously it looks like they're building storylines here with the storyline with, Jey messing up. If that's what we're doing here and that's the route that we're going, to me that's just desperation. In my honest opinion, you can't come up with anything better due to the fact that, oh, he's botched in the ring a couple of times. Oh, he had a miss up with the tope. Oh, he slipped in the middle of the ring when he was going to go for a spear on Gunther last night on Monday Night Raw. You can't come up with anything better than that? No. The situation with Jey and Gunther, man, it's run its course at this point, to a point where the people that I've talked to are actually hoping that Gunther is successful against Jey at WrestleMania. Do I still want Jey to win? Yeah. I think Jey, him becoming World Heavyweight Champion, and the amount of, fan base that he has right now, it'd be great for Jey. I don't think it's a huge loss for Gunther to lose the belt, because I think Gunther's going to go right back to the title again within the next 3 to 4 months. Jey winning the belt at WrestleMania would be great. It'd be a great moment for Jey. Jey finally accomplishes his goal by becoming a world champion and finally beating Gunther. He even mentioned on Raw last night that he was 0-3 against Gunther. So this will be a huge milestone for Jey Uso, not only to beat Gunther, but also become World Heavyweight Champion. So it's a big milestone for Jey, but it's how we're getting there to WrestleMania. I mean, we got, another 2 weeks? 2-3 weeks, roughly? And just the storyline, it's not really a storyline. And a lot of people, like I mentioned earlier, are saying, oh, well, give it time, let it marinate. Man, we're on week 5, and we're consistently getting the same bullshit that we're getting week in and week out with, Gunther attacking Jey. I mean, the only thing that we had different last night was Jimmy got face-to-face with Gunther and pretty much smacked the piss out of Gunther backstage last night and said, hey, we're going to have a match next week. So again, hopefully it's something where Gunther walks into that match and just decimates Jimmy Uso to a point where, Gunther does make it personal. And there's a light switch that, switches on for Jey, and we get a whole different side of Jey. And that's kind of what Jimmy was hinting around last night with Jey. Saying that Jey's not what he used to be. Jey Uso's not the same Jey Uso that run the Royal Rumble. And no, he's not the same Jey Uso that we saw winning the Royal Rumble. I feel like he kind of pumped the brakes a little bit, and he's kind of coasting right now because he knows he has a guaranteed match at WrestleMania. The storyline right now with Jey and Gunther is just, it's kind of running its course, man. And that's why I mentioned earlier about the WrestleMania fatigue. It's just there's loopholes and lack of storyline and lack of build to these matches right now. And I can tell you guys this, man, honestly. The main match that I think everybody's excited for at this point is John and Cody, which I will get into here in a second. But storyline-wise, man, that's probably the only match that I think a lot of fans right now currently are invested in leading up to this year's WrestleMania. Speaking of John and Cody, we opened the show last night on Monday Night Raw with John coming out to the ring like he did last Monday Night Raw. Once again, he didn't address Cody. There was nothing about him and Cody Rhodes. It was basically John, once again, criticizing and judging the fans and having his displeasures with the fans and ridiculing the fans. There's no rebuttal with him and Cody Rhodes. I'm going to be honest. I think Cody, even though John has turned heel at the very moment, and yeah, it was one of the biggest heel turns that we've seen since Hogan, in my honest opinion, or maybe not that far back, but damn near close to it. But even with John being heel, man, I think Cody is carrying the storyline right now. If you look at WrestleMania last year, Cody was getting punked out, day in and day out, whether it was Roman, whether it was, mainly The Rock. I mean, The Rock was beating the shit out of Cody Rhodes. I remember when all this shit popped off with The Rock and Cody, and The Rock attacked Cody backstage by his tour bus, and The Rock was beating the shit out of Cody Rhodes backstage in a parking lot with a weight belt. And, Cody was kind of looking like the sucker. You know what I mean? He was looking like a punk, man. He wasn't really doing anything. And, he was getting his ass kicked week in and week out until we got to WrestleMania, where he was finally able to complete his story, which was a memorable moment in WWE history, especially WrestleMania history. But now we look at the other side of the coin, and now we have this matchup, this high-profile matchup between Rhodes and Cena. In my honest opinion, it might be a hot take for a lot of people, but Rhodes is carrying this fucking storyline right now between him and John. I'm sorry. Because, the thing of it is, we haven't heard anything from John on the microphone deliberately going at Cody. It's always John going after the fans. I need to see something where John goes after Cody Rhodes a little bit on the microphone. And I don't know if that's by design. I don't know if that's because maybe ultimately John Cena would destroy Cody Rhodes on the microphone, because John's had some great promos throughout his 25-year career in WWE. And maybe he would just, destroy Cody Rhodes over the microphone, and possibly he could. Not trying to discredit Cody, but John Cena he's got a great promo. He always has been. And he's been around the business now for 25 years. I mean, he's probably got some stuff in the arsenal or in the Rolodex that he's willing to lay on the line when it pertains to Cody Rhodes. But it's I think it's hurting the storyline right now. Cody, even last night, Cody, came after, John Cena last night. I mean, he laid the belt on the line. He said, hey, take the title. Him and John had to stare down the middle of the ring. John ends up staring at Cody, and then John walks away, obviously pissing off Cody Rhodes. And, like I said, I just think Cody Rhodes is the one that's carrying this storyline right now. I need to hear something from John where John's going to go after Cody, and that needs to happen. And my thing is, too, is how many more dates does John have leading up to this year's WrestleMania? Is this SmackDown coming up his last date that he has until we see John at WrestleMania? And if that's the case, I'm hoping John just, it explodes. Verbally on John Cena. I mean, on Cody Rhodes. We need to have something where it excites the fans, where John finally snaps and he gets pissed off at Cody and he tells Cody how it is. That's what I want to see. Because ever since John turned heel, especially after Elimination Chamber, everybody was waiting to see what we were going to see from John. Are we going to see new ring gear for John, new entrance music, new theme, new video packages? We haven't seen none of that since John has turned heel. If anything, it's complete opposite. The only thing that's changed with John since he's turned heel is John's demeanor with himself and everything that he has mentally with the fans right now. We haven't seen anything different from John. So Cody is pretty much trying to piss John off for John to snap. And we need to see that next week on SmackDown, or this week on SmackDown. We need to see something. Because if this is John's, last time on SmackDown, then we need to see something that's going to be memorable enough to seal the deal between Cody and John, because right now what we're getting, it's not it. It's not. Isn't it the most anticipated match for this year's WrestleMania? Yeah, it is. Absolutely. Because I'm going to tell you right now, I feel like a lot of these matches that we're getting at WrestleMania this year are forced agenda matches. And a lot of multi-man matches. You're looking at, a triple threat match for the women's world title with Rhea, Bianca, and Io Sky. You're also looking at another triple threat match here between Roman, Punk, and Rollins. You're also looking at a possible fatal four-way, possibly with Braun Breaker and Penta and Finn Balor, and as well as Dominic Mysterio, for the Intercontinental Championship. There's a lot of multi-man matches possibly coming down the pike here for this year's WrestleMania, which I am not too, keen on, to be honest with you. A possible 6-man tag team matchup with, the LWO taking on maybe, the New Day and Grande Americano. That's also a possibility that could happen. So there's a lot of multi-man matches this year at WrestleMania. Do I think this year's WrestleMania will top last year's? Absolutely not. Absolutely not. The only thing that would have topped this year's WrestleMania over last year's WrestleMania is if we would have got John versus Cena, night 1 or night 2, and we got Rock Roman, either night 1 or night 2. That would have topped last year's WrestleMania. This WrestleMania this year will not even touch what WrestleMania did last year because it was absolutely incredible. And I feel as if, WWE and even Triple H, I put him in the mix too. He's pumping the brakes this year on this year's WrestleMania. There's a lot of loopholes. There's not a lot of storyline leading up to this year's WrestleMania. And you can tell, man, I'm not the only one that's been saying this shit now for the past couple weeks, specifically Jey Uso. I want Jey to win, but the storyline leading up to this matchup between Jey and Gunther at WrestleMania, it is lacking, people getting invested. Absolutely. And I think, right now the main match everybody wants to see right now is John versus, Cody Rhodes. I mean, you look at the situation with Punk, Rollins, and Reigns, it's lacking, bro. It is. I mean, you see CM Punk last night, and, the fans were booing, and you hear Punk saying, yeah, are you booing because Rollins and Punk ain't here to do the contract signing tonight? Yeah. I'm sorry, man, but, you got the biggest show in pro wrestling history coming up in the next, 2.5, 3 weeks? WWE needs to have all hands on deck, and that's the shit that pisses me off with a lot of wrestling companies. Some companies need all hands on deck, day in and day out, to survive, but, WWE is also in the same boat, especially with their biggest show of the year. Where the hell is Roman? Where the hell is Rollins? You need to have these guys on week in and week out television to lead up and to build up towards these matches, especially with the biggest show of the year being WrestleMania. But no, we had to wait until SmackDown to have a contract signing between CM Punk, Seth Rollins, and Roman Reigns when, no offense to me, CM Punk and Rollins are both Raw superstars. Reigns is not. So we had to wait till SmackDown to get that contract signing for a triple threat matchup at WrestleMania. To me, I think that's complete bullshit, to be honest with you. And I feel like even with the triple threat matchup between Rhea, Bianca, and Io, I feel like it's forced. And the reason why I feel like that is because what's left for Rhea to do? Honestly. Do I still think there'll be a triple threat matchup? Possibly. Absolutely. Especially with Bianca being the special guest referee for this matchup next week between Io and Rhea. Yeah. The triple threat match is definitely going to happen, but to me it seems as if they couldn't have WrestleMania this year without Rhea Ripley. And Rhea, there's nothing else left for Rhea to do. She's already accomplished her goals at this point, and I'm not trying to say that she's reached her ceiling, but Rhea has definitely reached her ceiling, it seems as if, on Monday Night Raw. Yeah, I wouldn't be surprised if she hasn't already, because I feel like they're running out of options for Rhea. Ever since she was with the Judgment Day, yeah, she left Judgment Day, and it was one of the best things that she could have done. But after that, I feel like everything right now for the entire Judgment Day as a whole is kind of at a stalemate right now. The Judgment Day currently right now is kind of at a stalemate. Rhea Ripley, yeah, I mean, she's got a title matchup possibly at WrestleMania. You look at Damian Priest, he's not really doing a whole lot right now. I still believe, honestly, for what it's worth, I think, for Damian Priest, what better matchup to have is with him and Aleister Black. I know there's been vignettes being played of possibly Aleister Black returning, possibly to Friday Night SmackDown. I would not be against seeing Aleister Black versus Damian Priest on SmackDown, and Aleister Black is a heel. I wouldn't be against it. Absolutely not. I think it'd be a great match, and it'd be a hell of a story to watch play out between Aleister Black and Damian Priest. But I just feel like this year's WrestleMania, man, there's a lot of forced agenda. There's not a lot of storyline to get behind some of these matches. It's lacking interest for me personally. I think Jey and Gunther, I think that whole storyline, if there was one, is run flat to a point where, would I be pissed off if it was a main event in night one? No. To me, right now, this matchup and the way they're building this matchup can definitely be a mid-card match. And you can have Punk, Rollins, and Reigns main event night one, and to be honest with you at this point, because I don't know, man. I don't see it. I just don't. And, with Rhea and that women's matchup, I feel like it's forced. I do feel like it's forced, and I feel like for me personally, as a fan, we're not even at WrestleMania yet. We got another 2.5 weeks to 3 weeks, and I'm already getting WrestleMania fatigue at this point, man, because it's lacking build-up and storyline leading up to this year's WrestleMania, man, and I'm just starting to feel the fatigue already before WrestleMania is even here. But with that being said, this is my review of Monday Night Raw. I hope you guys are out there staying safe. Be careful, and remember, stay classic. Peace.